What's up, 12s? I'm AB Hasselbeck, and this is the Seahawks Collective presented by Hog Media. And it's Thursday Night Football Week. We've got the best here tonight to get you all ready for it. Michael Sean Ugar covering the Hawks for The Athletic, Brian Nemhauser, the Hawk blogger, and our guy Rob Staton from the Seahawks Draft blog. And the Seahawks left no crumbs in Sunday's game against the Saints, 44-13 victory. Seahawks first home win since week 12 of last year's season. So let's bask in it just a little bit longer before you have to move on. I'm excited to hear your guys' thoughts on week 3, but also quick turnaround because we got Thursday Night Football and all eyes will be on the Seahawks. Don't forget to drop any questions you have for these guys, and we will do our best to get to them all tonight. But before we start, I got 2 around the league, kind of fun questions for you guys. So here's the first one. Ready? Which NFL head coach have we seen have the best dance move so far this season? Aaron Glenn or Mike McDonald? Or if you got a third, what do you guys think?
I mean, how do you beat Aaron Glenn?
Yeah, that was great.
I don't know.
That's gonna be a meme forever. Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. I think I had to. Yeah, that was good. That was good content. There was a lot of good content for all the kicking fiascos this week. There was a lot of Jalen Hurts, good content on theirs as well too. But yeah, that Aaron Glenn's up there.
Yeah, my vote goes to Aaron Glenn. I can only dream to have moves like that.
As someone who spends way too much time talking about the Seahawks, I don't know what Mike McDonald did. What did I miss?
Kind of moonwalked out of the dance circle in the locker room. It was very
gotcha.
low key.
Well, that's right. He did. Yeah.
Entourage. At least there were other people doing it with him, right?
Oh, that's funny. Yes.
So we'll hope to see more dance moves from Mike McDonald. But okay, second league question, because I know we got a lot of Seahawks things to talk about. Today it was announced that Jackson Dart will be the starter for the Giants. So wondering just where you guys think this will go for Russell Wilson. Do you think he's done as a starter? Could he end up on another team? Like, where do you guys see this going, Rob?
I think that's going to come down to Russell Wilson because. I don't know, because there are other teams out there that you could say Russell Wilson could potentially be an upgrade for them over their current backup. And yet I don't see the Bengals doing that. I don't think they're going to move off Jake Browning, despite what happened at the weekend. I don't see like the Vikings or any of the McVay type coaches doing that. So I don't know. It's a shame that it looks like it's the end for Russell. And unfortunately, I think this sort of latter end to his career is going to blot his copybook, and people are not going to remember the good times. But I think I'm hoping that in time, the Russell Wilson that we all remember is the one that effectively changed the league to a certain extent with his scrambling ability and everything that he achieved in those early seasons and then during his peak years in Seattle. So I hope we can get back to that. But this could be it. That could be him in the NFL done.
Brian, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit ironic, I guess, or at least poignant that the Seahawks are playing a quarterback drafted number 1 overall who probably wouldn't have been drafted number 1 overall if Russell Wilson wasn't the player he was. So Kyler Murray, I think, got some benefit that he wouldn't have otherwise. And there's other quarterbacks that have got the opportunity. Baker Mayfield probably benefited, even though he's a different type of quarterback. He's also on the shorter side. And so, yeah, I mean, Russell was absolutely a, genre breaker. I also think that he is not a guy that will ever be content being a backup and doesn't really fit that role. And I don't know that there's a place for him in the league, knowing that I think he brings more than himself to wherever he goes. And I don't know how many places want high knees on the plane. So we'll just have to see how that ends up.
Yeah, I think this is it for Russ. For those reasons, my age that allows me to look at a little bit differently. At least just recently, I was like, man, how old are his kids? Do they remember him being good? I mean, I guess he was like good last year, but no, like for real, because I was just talking to a player yesterday, and he has a small son, like 1, I think, and he was like, I want to play long enough so that like I can come off the field and my son can run to me and be like, oh, Dad, you did great. I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. And so if you're Russ, like, I'm sure you have those same goals, It's like, well, how much do those kids remember of you being like super good? It's a lot of his career now with teams actively trying to move on, fan bases not really rocking with him. So that kind of sucks. Me being a dad now, I look at it from that view. I posed this question. We don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but in the media room today, Brian was there. I was wondering if Russ is in the Hall of Fame. If assuming he doesn't play anymore, certainly won't be a starter anymore. I don't think. I feel like that'll probably be the next like debate topic that has to do with Russ. I'm a hard no on it. I had to leave the room before the rest of the debate commenced, but I feel like that'll be like a thing with Russ now.
Mike was out of there quick. Well, I can speak to the child and dad part. I would say even when my dad was a starter and when moments when he was backing up Andrew Luck, and not the starter, it was still so cool for me. Like I didn't know the difference really of how significant for him it probably was. But you look at that person as a superhero anyway. So I'm sure those kids will understand the glory days for sure at some point. But the Giants are 0-3 and looking to get their first win of the season against the Chargers. So good luck to the Giants and Jackson Dart. But let's get to Sunday's game against the Saints because it was a smackdown. 4 touchdowns, a block punt, an interception, a punt return to the house, and a team that just really lived up that next man up mentality on defense. And I know you guys have had a few days to process the true dominance, but I'd love to know just your biggest takeaway from week 3 against the Saints, Brian.
Yeah, I think it's impossible to watch that game and not have at least 2 takeaways. That one is it's been a while since the Seahawks have been able to separate from a poor team, from any team, really. And it's been a while since they even could win at home, losing, 7 of 8 at home. So just having that kind of dominant performance is something that's an indicator of a team that's better than average. Like that's just a reality. Average teams don't blow out other teams in the NFL. At the same time, I don't know how you could watch that game and not think, man, the Saints played a terrible football game. They were poorly coached, poorly prepared in all 3 phases. As good as the special teams was for the Seahawks, it was that bad for the Saints. They didn't even seem like they were working to get off blocks in some ways. So, I can't completely just blame it on the Saints being bad because the first 2 games of the season, they played pretty well and they played the 49ers tough and they played the Cardinals tough. But this was just a performance you'd want to forget as a Saints fan. And I feel bad because they're heading to Buffalo to play next. It doesn't get any easier for that group.
Mike, do you feel bad for the Saints fans?
Yeah, I do. Because they flew out here, not the fans, but the team flew out here on like Thursday and practiced at Husky Stadium so they could practice outdoors. I was like, oh, that's smart. They had been here for like 4 days and came out and were down 21-0 in 10 minutes. Like to the coaching point. It's one thing to lose, but that did just feel like, damn, like, did we hire the right guy? It's 3 games into the Kellen Moore thing, but. When I look at schedules, we may have talked about this before, but when I predict a schedule for a team or how they're going to do, I don't look at the quarterback. Sometimes look at the coordinators, but I'm really starting with the head coach 9 times out of 10. And I didn't know if this Kellen Moore was a wild card, and I was like, yeah, it was really, really, really bad. There was bad coaching decisions, bad playing. Other run defense was good, but otherwise, yeah. You can just see the coaching difference. And from the Seahawks side, I think that's really good because John hired Mike, specifically fired Pete and hired Mike, because you want to start having the coaching advantage more consistently on a week-to-week basis as part of it. It's like, we're getting out coached too often. That was internal thinking. And when Mike was the DC in Baltimore, I was like, oh, he is beating the snot out of these other good OCs. Like Baltimore was winning the coaching advantage a lot, particularly just defense versus offense. And so it was nice to see them win that. They won it last year on defense a few times, obviously, but rarely ever won on offense, which is why Grubb is gone. And they won across the board on Sunday, probably for the first time, first time in a while. So that was really good on the Seahawks side of it.
My takeaway is a purely selfish one in that, so the Seahawks games kick off at 9:05 p.m. here. I don't know if any of you have been really annoyed at 1 o'clock in the morning, but that has happened many times to me over the last 20 years. So it's not a good feeling. And often the most annoying kind of feeling is when you've just sat through a very stressful game that was unnecessarily stressful and they've still won. Like you still come out afterwards feeling like you've just gone through the ringer. And there've been too many games like that, too many games over the years as a Seahawks fan where you just sit there and go, why can it never be easy? Like the Lions or the Ravens or whoever, probably the Ravens are the best example at the minute, but they would just destroy a team like the Saints at home, given how they played at the weekend. And the Seahawks did it nice and easy. So I just sat back there. I don't know why I'm doing that. I don't smoke, but it was kind of like, get a cigar going, just kick back, enjoy watching the Seahawks hammer a different team and not have to worry about anything after the first quarter. It was very easy. I was able to watch a large portion of the Arizona Niners game on Red Zone as a consequence because the Seahawks it was very, very easy. There was no real reason to stare at the laptop and sort of watch that as I was doing. So, yeah, I think really just brilliant that they made it easy and didn't make it unnecessarily hard. And here's to more of those games in the future.
AB, isn't it pretty clear that they were just excited that Rob was back in the UK?
Listen, I was just going to say the same thing and mention what you said in the comments, that you went to the wrong game. Is there any remorse, Rob? You didn't seem sad about that at all. I would have been the whole time just man, this is the game that they score 44 points and I'm not there.
Well, do you know what? There was a few things during the broadcast. They kept showing these fantastic shots of Seattle. It was the most picturesque setting ever. The weather looked like it was the best weather that you could possibly have in Seattle that weekend. And there was a couple of times when I said, why didn't I go out that weekend instead? It was obvious. Why not go out when they're going to obviously beat the Saints? Why risk going all the way to Seattle, 5,000 miles, 5,000 miles back? When the last time you did it, they lost to the Niners and it was deeply upsetting. Why risk that again? But I did it. So who's the idiot? Me. Next year, I need to look at the schedule and pick the obvious game that's going to win so that when they win 44,000 to 3, people will stop saying that I'm a massive jinx. That's what I need to do next year.
Hey, listen, I respect the vulnerability, and you already applied what you're going to do better next time. Hey, there you go. You're on track. But I do want to just talk about that big win because certainly there will be harder tests for the Seahawks coming up, but a win's a win. But how much can you assess this win for the Seahawks as a team headed into week 4? Can you see anything from it? Or is it just, oh, you know what? We blew them out of the water, Mike?
Oh, you can always learn a lot when there's film, it good or bad, legitimately the film. Maybe the game day, yeah, not so much. It can just be this team stinks. This team's good. Sometimes it's that simple, but you watch the film, there's always stuff you can see. It was really, I haven't finished a defensive film yet, but really curious to see more Ty and D'Anthony Bell, just how they looked on tape. Even if they don't play again, it's just nice to see them on tape. It's always good to watch the O-line on tape. Sam wasn't sacked. Always good to go see why was that. Sometimes it's oh, the protection's great. Sometimes his first drop back of the game, it's oh, Sam was great. Had a defensive tackle in his lap. First time he went to throw. That was a Sam thing. Sometimes it's a protection thing. Sometimes so sometimes the guy just got open. Whatever. You can always learn something. I think if you're looking for something to be critical of, they just couldn't run the ball at all. It was really, and it was a bunch of different issues too. Sometimes it was one of the linemen, sometimes it'd be one of the tight ends, sometimes Ken's chopping his feet, and I hit in the hole. It was just a bunch of stuff. I can very easily see why Mike McDonald got deep in his coach speak bag on Monday and was we just need to be better, everybody, because that's true. To call out one group or one person would be that would be unfair. Everybody stunk at running the ball. And that you could see on film, even in a game where they win by 30.
Yeah, Brian, how do you think the Seahawks do get their run game going? Clearly, they've had some explosive passing plays at the same time. You're okay, great. Now at least we know we have both. But how do they do that on Thursday night?
Well, I'm really fascinated by whether they've got to the point now that teams are going to have to adjust to what has been the most explosive passing game in the NFL. They have the second most total explosive passes while having the third fewest pass attempts. So their explosive pass play rate is astronomical right now. And they're doing that in part because all these teams are loading the box with extra defenders. And you think that typically that happens when you have an effective run game and they're bringing down an extra guy to take away the run game. That has not been the case with Seattle so far this year. Instead, I think you give Clint Kubiak some credit. he has been doing what he does. A lot of 12, a lot of 21 personnel, which kind of dictates to the defense to have an extra linebacker on the field or bring an extra safety down. And that has slowed down the run game, but it has opened up the pass game. So I would not be surprised if this is the first time this season where you see a defense that likes to play a lot of three safeties. They like to play a lot of two deep, like split safety looks. They are one of the lesser teams at loading the box, and they're going to try to see if Calais Campbell and that defensive line can stop the run, and that they're going to give their cornerbacks, who are very injured and very young, as much coverage help as possible. Well, if they do that, this could be the first time that the Seahawks get to run into some neutral or light boxes and maybe have a fighter's chance of getting going. And if you look last year, the Seahawks absolutely dominated Arizona on the ground. Zach Charbonnet was a big part of that. It is a very different blocking scheme. So I don't know. I'm interested to see if the Cardinals are the first team to dare the Seahawks to run, because so far it's been the opposite.
Rob, are you hot on this issue, or are you okay with the hot passes downfield?
No, I think Brian made some very pertinent point. I think, my sort of main positive from all of this Saints experience was the defensive backs. I think to sort of going into the season, if you'd have said, you're not going to have Julian Love, you're not going to have Devin Witherspoon, and you're not going to have Nick Emmanwori for a game, I think a lot of people would panic about that. I probably would. I think you'd be sort of concerned about how that's going to go. And Josh Joe was playing very well. I know PFF doesn't. I don't know what they're watching. I find it very hard to work out why he was given a grade that was akin to them chucking one of us out there. But I thought he played very, very well.
Hey, give us some credit, Rob. Give us some credit, all right? Come on.
I'll just speak for myself then if they'd have put me out there and asked me to cover anybody. But and everybody else in the secondary, it's aside from Brian, and Woolen, obviously, it's the kind of group that would have you sort of just being a little bit worried, and they all played well. And I just think that's a really encouraging thing. It speaks to the work that obviously Carl Scott's done. He's just got this great reputation ever since he came to Seattle. Everyone seems to speak highly of him. Adam Durdy gets a shout out because, of course, he's British. And, the head coach is doing a terrific job. So I thought that was really good, that when you have an area on the field that is perhaps just a bit too banged up to be comfortable, and they still go out there and take the ball away, and Josh Jobe was running and hitting everybody that he could find. I just thought that was so encouraging. So it speaks well to their ability to maybe handle some setbacks with injuries later in the season, which are inevitable in the NFL.
Yeah, I want to talk about the Seahawks defense because you're missing multiple starters and you still have been able to hold opponents under 17 points throughout the entire season. Just where do you guys think the credit should go for the defensive success so far, Mike?
Yeah, Carl Scott for sure is the DB's coach. Jeff Howard is their safeties coach. Does a good job as well, specifically getting Darian Kendrick up to speed. Nico Thorpe has been working with him as well. Nico, I think his official title is assistant DB's coach. Let's go with that. But he worked with the DBs. That's his thing. He's been spending extra time with DK. I love that they call him DK, by the way. I know it's probably just because that's his initials. He's been going by that his whole life, but it just feels very appropriate yes. to get rid of your DK and replace him with a new DK. So I think those three coaches, I think where Mike McDonald deserves a lot of credit is the messaging. We've talked about this before, the ready squad thing. Like, I love calling it that, just making guys feel like they're rolling 70 deep for real, not 53. That I do think that matters either subconsciously or consciously to these guys to be like, I'm on a team that needs to be ready. I'm not just here to practice. I may play. And if I play, I need to uphold the standard of whatever my position group is. And that's the coaches as well. I talked to some guys about that in the summer because it really stood out, to Rob's point, right? You named Josh Jobe, DeAnthony Bell, Ty Okada, Reek and Kobe were like, that was the same feeling that people had going into the Falcons game last year. I believe the starting DBs were Julian, Kobe's first start, Nehemiah Pritchett, and then Josh Jobe, who was first start as well. So and Kirk had just recently thrown, I think, for like 500 yards on Thursday Night Football very recently. So it was like, oh my God, the sky's falling. Atlanta's going to kill us, right? They blew the Falcons out, right? Had a bunch of turnovers. And since then, I've been like talking to Carl a lot about like, dude, how are you doing this? How is your room holding this together? And it's just like the standard. Everyone who comes in here knows the standard. And that's the case in all the rooms, but we see that it's not the case in the O-line room, like legitimately. We don't see the product of it, I should say. We don't see that same in the linebackers room. We didn't see that same thing in Detroit, when their D-line was banged up. They were decent, but like the standard wasn't upheld. So I think those coaches and Mike just deserve a lot of credit. Obviously, the players are good too, but I think that messaging is very, very key to making sure guys are ready and they know that like there's a standard in here. We don't care that you're a backup. Go out here and perform like with Darian Kendrick. They're like, it's great that you got 2 picks, but you should have 4 because around here we catch those passes, right? We don't care. You just showed up a month ago. That's right. Part of the standard too.
And Mike McDonald even said, he's like, we're not changing the playbook for those guys. And I think you're right to say like the standard too, you have to respect the person who's setting the standard, right? And that's how guys are going to be hungry to do the extra work and to study. And I heard McDonald say earlier this week, he was asked about, how does he treat guys who are on the practice squad versus guys who are the superstars? He's like, they're all Seahawks, aren't they? Right? Like, and I just love that response. And I think it really shows and can be attributed to their success and how guys who are on the practice squad have been able to step up. So Brian, where are you crediting this defensive success so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to start with the coaching. And I mean, I think people have to remember Darian Kendrick isn't just new to Seattle and this defense. He's new to playing nickel. And so for him to come in and like be immediately effective, that's not by accident. And it's not just because he's playing well. Mike McDonald has actually changed a lot of what they call. They said that they don't, but they do. If you look at the numbers, the blitz rate's gone down meaningfully since Kendrick's entered because they're not going to ask him to be like playing the same coverages and be in the same stress points that a Devin Witherspoon's going to be. There's just no way. Devin Witherspoon's probably the guy that Mike McDonald trusts the most on the entire defense. He's out. And so I talked to Darian after the Steelers game in the locker room, and he stopped short of getting into the particulars, but I was like, how are you doing this? Like your first game playing a new position. And he's like, well, there's certain coverages, there's certain things that, I just know how to do. And so they're tailoring it to what these guys are capable of. But you have to also go back to the players because Mike couldn't call those coverages if his defensive line wasn't eating. If his defensive line wasn't capable of wreaking havoc without blitzing, if his edges weren't doing the same thing, then they couldn't be more conservative in how they're calling their coverages to give these guys help. So I'm really, really curious to see when Nick Emmanwori comes back, when Devin Witherspoon comes back, when Julian Love comes back. What does that look like? And what do you do with Darian Kendrick, who's been one of the biggest playmakers in the defense? You almost feel like you got to find a place on the field for him to rotate in. And I don't know who you give those. Everyone's going to say Reek Woolen. That's not the position Darian Kendrick has been playing the last 2 weeks. So it's just not the same. But I am curious to see how they handle that. Yeah.
Brian, I thought the same thing. So Rob, just wondering from you, like when everyone is healthy, how do you honor the guys who've shown that they can step up and play in this Seahawks secondary?
Yeah, it's going to be it's a good headache for the coaches to have into how they're going to work this out. I do think that certainly Job has warranted a really serious look as a starter. And I don't know how they're going to work that out with Kendrick. He's such an interesting case. This is a player who I can remember giving him an undrafted grade, and he was really not good at Georgia. And this is a player who was recruited by everybody and stayed in South Carolina with Clemson, and it didn't really work there. And then he went to Georgia, and it didn't really work there. I think he ran like a 4.8 at 190 pounds. So it's never really going to work out well for pre-draft. And then in LA, it didn't really work for him there either, and he's come here, and all of a sudden he's Darrell Revis. So it's a really interesting story with that. And the other great thing about him, by the way, is he seems to do the same thing. He drops it has like a football go either through his hands or hit him in the face, and you think, oh. And then Ernest Jones, in each occasion that's happened, has gone left the field with his hands on his helmet, like in frustration, like, no man, what are you doing? And then he goes and makes up for it later with an interception, with an important interception. So I think he's an interesting character. And how they fill in with the slot, I don't know. I guess it depends how Nick Emenwari comes along and how they're going to fit him into all of this thing and whether there's injuries. But it's a lot better problem to have when you're trying to work out how to get all these guys on the field than sort of like there are some teams out there who, like the Jets made a trade for a cornerback today. You know, there's teams out there that are scrambling around trying to find solutions. The Patriots wanted that player as well, and they couldn't get him. So I think Seattle's in a really strong position there, and it's great. It's fantastic. The defense is doing very well.
Mike, how do you see this secondary shaking out when they do have their players back and fully healthy?
I think the role with the same guys they've had, but I mean, I think it just puts pressure on everybody to just keep playing at a high level, you know, which you need. I think Job kind of has that in him naturally, you know, those guys who, if you're already on your second team or whatever, third team, or whatever, like, or if you're undrafted, late round guys kind of always have that, yo, I got to get it together before I'm, you know, not on the field anymore. But it's just nice for everybody to have that, no matter where you Spoon too, you know, Spoon 2-time Pro Bowler. He made the top 50 in all-time history, which is pretty incredible, I think. So, but even him, yeah, it's like, hey, look, we got another nickel who's nice too, you know. So make sure you're on it too. No one's exempt from that, you know, from Leo to Spoon to J Love, whoever. But yeah, I think the role with their same guys, it's just gonna be all right. Now we know somebody rolls the ankle, we ain't got to throw them out there if they don't need to, which is good. Maybe right now you don't want to do that anyway, but like late in the year, I know teams make those calls. Like, hey man, how bad is that ankle for real? How sick are you? You know, like how bruised are those ribs? We see that all the time. December, maybe early January, you see that. And if you have depth, you don't have to do that. You know, you can kind of save the player from himself, and that's really helpful late in the year.
AB, I have to jump in because there's just someone we didn't name, and I feel like it's crazy not to name them. John Schneider. I mean, for them to get Josh Jobe and Darian Kendrick for literally nothing, and for those two to be playing to the level they're playing so far is wild. And so I think he deserves, and that scouting department, that pro scouting department deserves some credit for making those moves. And it's not the first time we've seen Justin Coleman and other guys that they've kind of got for nothing at cutdown day that turned into pretty good players in the secondary. So they've got something figured out in that position group.
Yeah, and another guy who was a steal, Torrey Horton, right? Putting up the longest punt return in Seahawks history, 95 yards to the house, and just a dominant presence from the Seahawks special teams. So just wondering from you, Brian, just how much of this win are you crediting to the special teams? We know a hardball got a game ball, but how much are you going to give it to the special teams?
Well, if you want to like take each phase and which phase kicked the Saints butt the most, no question, special teams. I mean, I think that was the biggest whooping I have seen on special teams that I can remember. I mean, to have a punt block where there's literally nobody blocking the guy. I was talking with D'Anthony Bell today about that in the locker room. He's blocked a couple punts in college. And I was like, have you ever had that straight of a line to the punter before? He's like, no. I was like, were you thinking about maybe like it's so sure that you're going to block it, you're going to try to take it off his foot and just run it into the end zone? He's like, yeah, that was going through my mind, but I wanted to just make sure I got it. And then I love Torrey Horton's return, but honestly, if you look at the blocking, not only on that return, but his later punt return and on the Derek Young kickoff return, they just absolutely wiped people off the field. And then you got to throw in Chaz Surratt, who had a pretty remarkable game as well in special teams. So yeah, I think it was a really, really impressive game. If it was the only time they had done that, that'd be one thing. They've had an impact play in every single game. I can't remember the last time the Seahawks had 3 straight games where you're talking about a blocked kick of some sort, a touchdown of some sort, like multiple of those in one. Like, this has been as good of a stretch of special teams play as we've seen in a long time in Seattle. And you got to give Jay Harbaugh credit for that. I don't think it's realistic to expect that level of impact to continue. Special teams hopefully wins you 2 games a year if you know things go well. I think the Seahawks have got their quota already, so they should really make sure they're winning in the other phases.
It's pretty incredible. So, Mike, do you think the Seahawks have hit their special teams quota, or is there more in the tank?
Yeah, I mean, that's really impressive. You know, these are some big swings, you know, blocked kicks, and you know, the other one, I still feel bad for that Steelers kid from last week. But like stuff like that. I mean, I think we're going to see a lot more of it. Also think they're on like I don't know if special teams has like regression to the mean like other parts of football do, but I mean, last year they had some just tough luck. What happened to what happened to the Rams on Sunday happened to them against the Giants last year, and that was the first time I had seen that on a game winner. And then, or that would have tied the game, but you get the point. And then, like last year's Jets game was really bad. That was up there with one of the worst special teams performances I've seen. So it does like we're in for some regression to the mean there a little bit. But I do think special teams coordinators and defensive coordinators, I just think they're in general on a roll across the league right now, and you're seeing it. I think we may not get as much excitement as we got in week 3 across the league, but there will be more moments where special teams coordinators are like, we found this edge and it led to this, this punt, this kick, whatever, especially on kickoff. Kickoff's a real weapon. You see the Saints ran back like every kickoff on Sunday, and that's intentional. That's ball placement. You're trying to take advantage of that. So I think we're gonna see a lot more of that, especially with field position swings being so huge. Between like, where you get it at the 35 now, that's massive field position difference. I think we're gonna see quite a bit of that. Which game? There was a national TV game, which a team sealed the game basically because the kickoff returner looked at his coach and was like, "Should I come out?" and came out. It was the Vikings, maybe. I really do think special teams just, I guess the Bears. Yes, thank you. So what I'm trying to say is, no, I don't think this would be it. There's going to be a lot of games I feel like across the league where special teams is going to matter even more so than it already does.
Well, good, because that would be a major tease, right, for the Seahawks to do that to everybody. And Rob, because you enjoyed the game so much, I do want to ask you just about something that Mike McDonald had said. He loves how his team is playing with shocking effort and really just the intensity that sticks out. And so wondering if you have a play, a moment, maybe just a player who you're like, man, they have just shown this shocking effort that Mike McDonald's talking about.
So I knew we were going to touch on this. I went back and watched through the game.
A+, you win.
There you go.
Teacher gives you a gold star. Good job. Rob did his homework.
That's it. I wanted to come up with something that was a good answer to this. So my suggestion for the shocking effort moment was Ken Walker is tackled by Carl Granderson, who apparently, I didn't see the game, but everyone has said played very well the week before against the 49ers. So he's tackled by Carl Granderson on the 3-yard line. And he wraps his arms around Ken Walker's waist and his knees sink to the turf. And he's pulling all of Carl Grant. Is a big guy. All of the weight is going into that tackle into Ken Walker. And Ken Walker manages to, despite that, drag him an extra 2 yards. And then a second Saints defender engages contact with Ken Walker at the 1-yard line. And he still stays on his feet and is able to reach the ball over the line for a touchdown without his knees or any part of his lower body hitting in the turf for that to be called back. I thought that was incredible to have a man who's as big as Granderson is holding on to you like that, pulling you down, and to stay on your feet and then have a second defender doing that. That for me was a superhuman effort and worthy of Mike McDonald's shocking effort status.
Brian or Mike, do you have a shocking effort play, moment, player?
I got one that probably wouldn't show up on Mike's list. McDonald, that is. I loved Gray Zabel, the rookie, drawing a personal foul from Brian Brezzi on the first drive.
Fair.
I was talking to Gray about it today, and I won't share exactly the exchange, but from what I understand, Gray did not initiate something. The guy, he just was in his face, and the guy started talking to him, and that was a huge play in that game. And that was a moment of the Seahawks had actually just failed on that play, and we're about to walk off the field to kick a field goal. And because Gray Zabel is the player and person he is, not many rookies are drawing personal fouls from defenders. And I thought that was a turning point in a game that didn't have much to turn after that. So I loved that from Gray Zabel, and I loved hearing from Sam Darnold today that Gray talks a little trash out there. I think the Seahawks offensive line needs that kind of energy. And I was glad to see the rookie bring it.
Mike, do you have a shocking effort?
Yeah, I thought first off, that kid, that's a great example of like the bad coaching. The kid who headbutted Gray, because Brian's right, that was a huge moment. You know, maybe they still get blown out, maybe, right? But like they scored on the very next play. You know, it was so bad, so undisciplined, so unnecessary. Why are you headbutting anyone? It's not a street fight. Anyway, I think I don't know. It may not be shocking effort per se, but I just loved it in real time. Loved it on tape. It was Chaz Surratt blocking for Torrey, just laying out it's the punter, I believe is who he laid out. So it's whatever. But we see not every week, but we see pretty often that sometimes the punter or the kicker is that last line of defense, and they do trip up the returner. We just saw it on the Monday night game, I believe. So that is huge. Like clearing that guy out, it was just man. I got texts about that right away. It was like, who's 44? You know, it's like I also didn't know off the top of my head. I was like, I don't know. Who is 44? let me look that up. So then I figured out who it was. That's that stuff you love to see too. You know, just be physical in all three phases. You know, whether your team has the ball or you're on D, whatever. You know, just that's one of those I'm sure got shown this week in practice as well. Like, yeah, this is who we want to be. You know, every block, every play counts.
Yeah, that moment definitely showed you that being the kicker in that situation, you either have the opportunity to have an amazing tackle and look like a superstar that just hits the gym, even though he might not look like the other guys out there, or you are in a incredibly vulnerable position to get absolutely blown up. So always funny to see that. I think I would go with Ty Okada. There was very little time left at the game. You know, he played like every single snap, and he goes full tilt at Tyler Shuck to force a throwaway pass downfield. And I think for me, it was that moment because it's like the game is won. It's already over. You might have guys that are too big for the moment, but he really wasn't. And I think that can show you a lot about the character of this team and the standard that they're trying to play at down to the last whistle. But before we get into some Seahawks updates, I do just want to ask you guys, because we have a lot of Seahawks fans on here right now. Seahawks haven't had a great home win in a long time. So what factor do you think the crowd at Lumen had in this win, if any?
How many false starts did the Saints have? What,
They had a
5?
lot. Yeah.
It was 5. Jesus. I don't know where that ranks in, you know, in the McDonald era, but that was, I know they are just poorly coached apparently, but that was pretty bad. You know, that felt very 12-y there. Also, it was funny. I was like, I do know what player it was, but I won't say now. But I was like, how's it feel to win at home? You know, just some softball question in the locker room. He's like, man, it feels good. When's the last time we won at home? he just genuinely did not know. I ended up not running that part of the quote, but still, it's like it speaks. I didn't run the quote at all. Now I think about it, but it just speaks to how long it's been. I did have to look it up before I went down to the locker room. I was like, damn, it's been a minute, you know. So yeah, I think those false starts illustrate that. But also, like, guys not even knowing how long ago it had been, that shows you how badly they needed to do that.
Yeah, I think that was a bigger factor than the crowd. I think that the guys, I mean, they even had Richard Sherman come in, and Sherman was telling them, like, guys, you really want to get this crowd behind you. It's a helpful thing when you get this crowd behind you. And I mean, they already know that, but I think they are so sick of everyone in that building is sick of answering questions of why can't you win at home? And it's frankly like unacceptable and embarrassing. A lot of it had to do with facing Josh Allen and a good Packers team and a good Viking. Like there are other reasons, not just that they're bad at home, but yeah, I'll be honest, AB. I didn't think the crowd was special this weekend, and I don't think the crowd's going to be special until the team gives them reason to be. And that's kind of the state we're in with the fan base. Like it's not what it was, I feel like 10, 15 years ago, where the fans felt like it was their job to push the team to victory. Now it's a little bit more like show me and then I will show you. And I think that'll happen, but it was a good start. It was a good start down that path.
So you're saying they need Rob back there. They need Rob.
Yeah, for sure.
Listen, they definitely don't need that. But can I just go off on a complete tangent and give Brian some praise?
Sure.
And it's based on the fact that Michael Sean just said something there. He said that I won't name the player, and that was something that Clint Kubiak said earlier. when Brian asked him if Torrey Horton reminded him of anybody, and he refused to answer the question. And then Brian followed it up as a good journalist would. And he, the man who has the fewest words at every single press conference that he does in the NFL just casually compared Torrey Horton to Justin Jefferson, one of the greatest NFL receivers ever. I just thought it was remarkable, really, to hear Clint Kubiak make that comparison. But it's good. It's the quote of the year. I don't think there will be a more interesting line from any press conference this year than Torrey Horton being compared to Justin Jefferson. So I thought that was very interesting. Really.
Thank you, Rob.
Good job, Brian. We'll take it. That's an amazing comparison.
Who did Reek say he was? Sorry to cut you off. But
no, you're good.
Who did Reek? Jerry Rice Jr.
Jerry Rice. Yes.
Jerry
so
Rice
now
Jr.
Torrey has already been compared to Jerry Rice and Justin Jefferson in 2 months, 3 months.
Yes.
Wow, this kid is on a
rookie of the year. What do we think? Rookie of the year? Are we talking about it?
My God, he is tied for the lead among all rookies in touchdowns with 3 through 3 weeks. And it's funny when I talked to Reek about why he said Jerry. I was like, you weren't even born when Jerry Rice was playing. How did you come up with that? And he's like, it's his route running, and he kind of talked about his high knee, like the high knees he runs with, and just like stylistically, he looked like Jerry Rice. So it wasn't just random. He thought there were some things that reminded him of that player. So, man. Talk about unreasonable pressure on a 5th-round rookie coming off of a injury. But, man, everybody's got to be pretty excited about what they've seen so far from him.
So Jerry Rice, Justin Jefferson, if he has like a couple of protein shakes next week, who's next? Is it Megatron next? Or,
That's probably not one we're going to hear. There's not going to be the 6'5", 220-pound, guys that he gets compared to. But yeah, I mean, I'll say this. The first guy that when I looked him up and I talked to Torrey about this, he reminded me a little bit of Torrey Holt. And I was like, has anyone ever compared you to him? And he's like, yeah, the same size, same speed, a lot of similarities, a good route runner. Torrey Holt's a Hall of Famer. I felt like that was unfair, but Justin Jefferson and Jerry Rice, that's a whole nother level.
Hey, all good things, and we will take it. But I do want to be able to talk some Cardinals with you guys today. So we'll just go short on some of these injury and transaction updates. Obviously, Charbonnet, Emanwari, Love, Spoon, all absent from Sunday's game. And we saw Oots and Jones leave the game. So just for you guys, who is the player that you are most needing to see on Thursday, Mike?
Probably Spoon. Even though I'm high on Darian Kendrick, I think Spoon's their best player, independent of position or side of the ball. I just think it's Spoon. There's an argument for Leo, who's playing out his mind too. So I just think he's a difference maker. We saw, I think in week 1, you saw that when the difference makers do show up, particularly if it's timely, that's how you can win some of these games. I thought Brock was a difference maker. Obviously Bosa was, and you just see that across the league too. When it's time, saw that in the Monday night game between the Lions and the Ravens. When the difference makers show up, and these close ones, it's the difference between winning and losing. So, I really hope they have Spoon back, because he's just that type of guy who just really just helps you win.
Rob, who do you need to see on Thursday?
From the injured group, I mean, I really like seeing Julian Love out there. And even though the younger guys played well, I want to see Julian Love. I don't think there's any doubt that Julian Love's going to play, because there was one of the touchdowns or one of the big plays on Sunday, and he was sprinting down the field. So it did certainly seem like that was maybe just a cautionary thing, keeping him out of that game against the Saints. But him, and as Brian mentioned, Zach Charbonnet had a brilliant game against the Cardinals in Arizona last season. So it would also be good to see him back out there, even though Ken Walker's has played well, obviously, in the last 2 games.
And Brian, who is it for you?
Yeah, I think I'm with Rob on the Julian Love piece, primarily because I think the delta between Julian Love and the guys that step in, I thought Ty Okada played a really nice game, generally speaking, but I think the things you can do with Julian back there are just very, very different. And I think he's just a very important part of how that defense runs and operates. And I think that Darian Kendrick, if you had to play him in place of Devin Witherspoon, has shown that he can be a pretty productive player. So, I think I'd probably go Julian Love. But I got to say, I am dying to see Nick Emanwari. It's not because I think he's the most important player to get back, but you look at this rookie class, guys, and like Gray Zabel is kind of killing it. And Torrey Horton, we've talked about. Robbie Oots has been very good. Like there's a lot of guys contributing. Nicky Manwari was the guy they traded up to get. And we've seen him for like a couple snaps. And one of those snaps, he was blitzing and made a tackle for loss. And then he was gone. So I don't know if he's going to be really, really good or he might be really, really frustrating. I think both are totally possible, but I am eager to see what Mike Macdonald will do with him when he gets out there.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, like we've seen the defense step up. I think we're spending time talking about the run game. So I'm excited to see Charbonnet hopefully back out there. I think he did practice today. It was a walkthrough. So take that with what you will. But let's get to the Thursday night game. And right before, we're going to give you some flowers and make sure that you all know who our sponsor is for this season, the Sleeper app. So check out this video.
Sleeper is the #1 fantasy sports app. It pays to know sports. Pick more or less on top players. Your first pick is on us, so start winning now. Play in Texas, Georgia, Minnesota, and 27 more states. Pick anytime across all sports, pregame or live. Over 10 million players are already on Sleeper. Make your picks count. Score up to 1,000 times your cash. Join today. Get up to $100 credit using the code HMA. Call your shot on Sleeper. Download now.
Download now. This app offers so much: live scores, stats, news, alerts, but it's also just fun because you can engage in real-time chats with others. And for those of you who are more competitive, you can win real money, okay? So make sure you check out the #1 sports app today and try it out for yourself. Use promo code HMA and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleepers. Terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out the Sleeper app today. Do not sleep on the Sleeper app. And really, we only have 2 more sleeps until the next Seahawks game. It's a short week. So let's get right to it. Taking on the Cardinals in Arizona. They're coming off a really close loss to Mac Jones and the 49ers. Seahawks were able to rest some starters in the fourth quarter against the Saints. So huge edge on recovery, even though, it's only 1 quarter. It really does make a difference. But big news for the Cardinals losing James Conner to a really gruesome ankle injury. He's out for the season. So curious, Mike, how you think the Cardinals will replace a guy like James Conner.
Yeah, I like him. He runs really, really tough. Reminds me of Chris Carson, and Isaiah Pacheco, I think as well. Guys who just like, okay, you're running hard. I can really tell Pacheco for some reason running the wrong way. But like Connor runs very, very, very hard. I think the run game though should be fine in general. My thing with the Cardinals is just like I was part of the Kyler Murray fan club, for lack of a better term. I think going into last year. And even midway through, I was like, "Oh, come on!" Like he's got it. And then I think I'm just off. I just don't know. He's becoming which coach was it for the Niners? Like can't win with him. I'm kind of with that. I think it was Mike Singletary, maybe. Like I just can't. It's tough, man. I think his best stuff is good. His worst stuff is real bad. He's got a lot of bad QB habits, drifting, throwing off his back foot, bailing out of pockets early, just stuff that the more I watch quarterbacks, I'm like, oh, hey, stop doing that. It just keeps doing it. So I think their offense should be fine no matter who's the running back, but I think their bigger issue is is Kyler their guy? And can he be their guy against the Mike Macdonald defense that might be fully healthy on Thursday?
Rob, Mike doesn't seem too concerned about Kyler Murray, but how are you feeling?
Pretty good. Unless I'm mistaken, I think the Seahawks have won 7 games in a row against the Cardinals. So they're on a good run.
You're not mistaken. You're dead on.
Ah, great. My maths has worked out for once. And last year it was 16-6 and 30-18. So they felt like comprehensive wins. Maybe my memory is not that great, but they felt at the time like the Seahawks handled them in both contests. So I'm eager to see that again. And I think there is something to be said for, look, the Saints, they are what they are. They're going to be picking very early in the draft next year. I think the Steelers looked very poor against the Patriots at the weekend based on what I saw in Red Zone. So the Seahawks need that. They need a win that you just come out afterwards and you think, okay, you've beaten a competitive team there. It's an important win and it can really sort of, take you into that Tampa Bay game feeling like, yeah, this team can have the kind of season that you want to have. So this is that kind of a game for me. And you're playing them at a good time. You've had a game like you had against the Saints. They had a very close battle against the Niners on the road. They've lost one of their best players. The defensive line for the Cardinals is grading very poorly across the board. They've got injuries there. Trey McBride's probably going to have 80 yards like he always does. Can you limit the amount of scoring opportunities to get in the red zone? I think Kyler Murray's got 3 interceptions in the 2 games last year. So can you get another 1 or 2 interceptions off him in this game? I'm feeling very confident. I think like Mike McDonald versus a Kyler Murray-led offense, like Michael Shurmur said, I think that's a good match for the Seahawks. So I'm very optimistic that the Seahawks are going to win this Thursday, and that we can all then spend 10 days looking very much forward to that great battle against the Buccaneers.
Yeah, Brian, break this down for us, how you think Mike McDonald is planning to defend Kyler Murray.
Well, I think we've got some clues to that. And it's not just from Mike McDonald, it's from Leonard Williams. Leonard Williams earlier this year, we talked about he called himself the blue dot on the defensive line, which Adam Dirty thought was hilarious. But Leonard Williams does get to kind of set the rush patterns on the line before the snap. And he said, like, when you're facing a guy who is likely to be on the move and is mobile, you don't do as many stunts in games because that creates additional rush lanes. So you're going to you saw this last year when the Seahawks faced Kyler Murray. I was pretty nervous heading into those games about or at least question their ability to contain him. It was some of the best, most coordinated pass rush I had seen in those 2 games. And they really did bottle up Kyler Murray. And one of the things, AB, that's kind of crazy in this game is, to this point, Kyler Murray has not completed a pass on a scramble yet this year. So when he scrambles, he's more likely to run. And frankly, I think that's the bigger concern for the Seahawks. The other is what I think Rob brought up, and Trey McBride. Tyrese Knight, I think, has played really well against the run, but he has given up, I think, the 4th most yards per coverage snap among linebackers in the NFL. And I think that's why Drake Thomas is getting rotated in there. And so I'm curious to see, Mike Dugar has asked some good questions about, like, can you really rotate linebackers like the way you rotated linemen last year? And Mike seemed to think you could, Mike McDonald, that is. So I think there's some interesting matchups. I think you've got a Cardinals team that, I'll just tell you, when you have, like, they're missing their top 3 corners and 2 that were injured before the season. They're missing their best offensive player and emotional leader in James Conner. Just happened. Marvin Harrison Jr. is down. Everybody in Arizona is questioning their offensive coordinator. When I did a radio call with Arizona today, they were asking me to tell them, how could the Cardinals beat the Seahawks? Like, they don't have.
Don't tell them, Brian. Don't say anything. Shut your mouth.
I mean, I'm just sitting there saying,
don't say anything.
I didn't give away the crown jewels. I'm just saying, AB, the lines flipped.
You know a lot, Brian. You got some good intel. So I hope you didn't say anything.
I didn't. I'm just sitting there thinking, like, when everything in the NFL is pointing to a Seahawks win, you should be really, really cautious. And this is a division game on the road on a Thursday night. So, I think the Seahawks are going to get a real test from the Cardinals, and neither one of these teams want to go 0-2 in the division to start the year.
Yeah, Rob, do you feel like this is a must-win for the Cardinals?
I don't think it's a must-win for either team. There's still so much of the season left to go. I think it's a must-win for both teams because just the perception, in terms of perception, I think that's probably what I'm trying to say, is that you kind of come into the season and everyone's expecting it's the Rams and the Niners who are going to be the top 2 teams in the division. I may well have had a little dabble, as you are allowed to here in the UK, on the Seahawks to win the NFC West because I got fantastic odds on them as the 4th favorite in the division. So, I was having some of that, and the Cardinals were 3rd. So I think these are 2 teams that are probably eager to show that they mean business. And the Seahawks have already lost to the 49ers. The Cardinals have now lost to the 49ers. So they both need it to show that they can compete. Because if whoever loses, people are just going to go, yeah, they're the 4th best team in this division. I really don't want that to be the Seahawks. I don't want their 2 defeats to be to the Cardinals and the Niners, and their only 2 wins to be against a hapless Saints team and a Pittsburgh team that just looks toothless at the moment and does not look like a real threat in the AFC. That will make for a very long 10 days before that Tampa Bay game. If that happens, there'll be a lot of time to wring hands between now and that contest. So I really don't want to be in that position. I do feel, rightly or wrongly, very confident about this game. So I'm hoping that's going to be justified by the early hours of Friday morning for me.
Well, Mike, I'll give you one of our super chats before we end here tonight. Are you concerned that they don't Seahawks score a touchdown in the second half from stalling after halftime? What are your thoughts? Can they keep up the momentum coming out of the second quarter?
Yeah, they're like 4-minute offense, so to speak. Not always at the 4-minute mark, but when you're trying to just like get some first downs on the ground, bleed some clock, it's not been great. 2-minute stuff has been fine generally when there's no penalty. So yeah, but I am a little worried. The offense against the Cardinals defense, I do think is the only reason why I'm not like predicting a blowout. Because I'm as I said, I'm just totally off on like Kyler against a Mike McDonald defense that's healthy. I don't believe in that. But I could see, like in the game in Seattle against these two teams last year, the offense being a little funky. I think that Arizona's front is better than it was last year. It can't be worse because that front was very bad last year. And I think that the Seahawks passing game is the most explosive. And I think part of the reason is because they're taking advantage of bad safety play, which is usually how explosive happens in the runs and the pass. Is when just safeties either take bad angles, like Justin Reed was doing multiple times for the Saints on Sunday, and the Steelers safeties were both bad. So this team has competent safeties, really good safeties, I would say, actually. Jalen Thompson, go Cougs, and then Budda Baker, won't say what school he went to. So like they have like good safeties. So I want to see how they do against that, because the Niners also had competent safeties and the Seahawks couldn't move the ball. So this will be a test for them. Can you be explosive? Can you convert third downs when the other safeties aren't flat-footed, when they're not taking bad angles, when they're not missing tackles like the Steelers and the Saints were doing? But that's legitimately my only reason why I don't think this game won't be like 27-7 or something.
And I think that is an awesome call out. I totally agree. And you got to also mention Rob's guy, Dadrian Taylor Demerson, the other safety that's been playing for them in 3 safety looks.
Oh yeah.
All 3 of those guys are really good. And I think that's a huge factor in this game.
All right. Well, it's coming up quick. There's not a lot of time before this game. I know, Mike, you probably got a lot of work to do, and Brian, probably 15 million other shows, and Rob, something from you as well. A big Thursday night matchup against the Cardinals on the road. Sam Darnold takes the Seahawks down to Arizona, looking to go 3-1. But before we end, anything that we should know from you guys keeping up with your channel? Rob, anything coming up?
Yeah, I'm sort of deep into I've written the framework for a piece on the latest college football weekend. There's a lot going on. This is looking like one of the worst drafts I've ever covered. So that is actually making for interesting writing. So it's quite interesting to
Don't
follow.
tell us that. Come on, don't tell us that.
No, I'm really sorry. I know that's probably people are going to be like, right, that's the bookmark off Seahawks draft blog for another year. See you in 12 months. But it's not the most exciting draft. But there are interesting things to get into. So I've been posting my pieces on Thursday with that. Obviously, there's the games got in the way of this week. How inconvenient for us. So I'm probably going to post that on Saturday instead. But that's what I have coming up, and hopefully it'll be well worth being absolutely knackered on Friday, having stayed up till 5 o'clock in the morning to watch this game. Mike,
anything from you?
Just the same. Buy my book. Buy the book. Franchise Seattle Seahawks, curated history, the Legion of Boom era. I will have some at the game. And I'll have some just in Arizona. I know Seahawks fans travel really well there. Another reason why the Seahawks keep beating them. I think so. If you're there, let me know. I got my Sharpie. I'll sign your book. Appreciate the love. Or you can just buy it online. That's fine too. But appreciate the support.
Even for the Cardinals fans. Okay. That's true commitment. Brian, what do you have coming up this week?
Well, in an hour, I'm doing Real Hawk Talk. So we had to move dates with travel and other things going on. And got some friends I'm going to be meeting in Arizona tomorrow night. So we wanted to leave the night open for enjoying that. And then we'll be talking tomorrow also at 3:00 with Bo Brack, who covers the Cardinals for Phoenix Sports, and getting the latest update injury-wise. really curious what's going to be going on with Paris Johnson Jr., their left tackle, and now Kelvin Beachum, their backup vet tackle, also might be hurt. A little under the radar, they signed a tackle to their 53-man today that has some of the folks in Arizona wondering if the two tackles will not play in this game. So, got that coming up, and I'll publish my Tail of the Tape article either later tonight or tomorrow.
All right. Well, we'll let you get some food and caffeine for your next show. Doing it all. But we will see you guys next week. The Hawks hope to stack some wins. That is a wrap for the Seahawks Collective this week. I'm Annabelle Hasselbeck. Thanks so much for watching. Go Hawks.